Hey Siri, what's an appearance? Hey everyone, welcome back to Siri Talks Back. As usual, it's me, your host, Siri Kanaganti, and welcome back to the show. Anyways, as you can tell from the opening question, today's topic is appearances. And the reason why this topic came up is because the other day I wore an off shoulder shirt, and one of my friends said that she was surprised that my parents let me wear it. And, I feel like appearances really tie into stereotypes, which tie into like layers, and that ties into illusions. So I just felt like doing an episode on it because, I don't know, I just find it so interesting. Like someone's appearance and like assumptions about them, illusions, etc. I feel like they all tie in amazingly. So that's the topic for today's episode. Anyways, let's get started. So, what is an appearance? That was the opening question. And to describe it, I would say an appearance is how someone, I really don't want to use appears, but I am tempted to, but how someone looks to be, how they seem to be, like how they dress, what their hair color is, like etc. Some like small traits about how they dress, what they wear. And a lot of those times, those small, tiny bits can give you huge assumptions about the person. And they can be wrong or right or partially wrong or just totally neutral. But there's a lot of cases, and, there's a lot of people. So naturally, there's bound to be stuff that happens when you think about appearances. So, what intrigued me most about the person saying that they were worried, or not worried, but confused about how my parents let me wear just a simple off shoulder top, is I would say the assumption they had, which wasn't necessarily based off of my appearance, but based on how I appeared. Now, those two things may seem synonymous, but trust me, they're very much different. Appearance is more visual, and how you appear can also be based on your voice type, not only what you look like, but how you act, etc. So I feel like that person drew in a lot of, maybe I would say, Asian stereotypes, and because of that they just made the inference that, oh, her parents wouldn't allow her to wear this. And the reason why I'm covering this isn't because I was like heavily swayed by that, but as I said earlier, it's just so interesting to know how other people have like, thoughts about someone else's existence, I guess. I don't know how to describe it, but it's just so interesting, and I just love digging so deep into things that, actually run deep and can be, I would say, causes of a lot of things. Like, I bet you one war, okay, maybe not a war, but like at least like a dozen conflicts started based on assumptions that were incorrect about people's appearances. And that draws in stereotypes, and then there's illusions, and as I said, so many topics that branch out. Speaking of illusions, am I an illusion? Because, I'm supposed to be Siri. No one knows. I could be. You could be. Oh my god, am I imagining this scenario in my head right now? Do I even have a podcast in real life? Because I'm not gonna lie, as a kid, I would worry that I had some mental disorder and I was experiencing fake scenarios, and that like whenever someone was being nice to me, they were actually yelling at me, and that when someone was yelling at me, they were being nice to me in real life, and I was like envisioning things incorrectly. I don't know. I grew up as a very, I don't know, questionable but curious child. Yeah, I would say that's the right word. I mean, as we know, any child is curious. And I wasn't really curious about like the meaning of life, am I an illusion, but more of what would happen if I did this. Like I always wondered what would happen if I okay, well, so kid me said what would happen if I ate the world, and then like teenager me, I guess. Teenager me wonders what happens if the world eats me based on how things are going. So I just always had the curiosity as a child, and that did draw into like small stereotypes, actually, not gonna lie. Because as a kid, I was like taught discorrect information. Did I just say discorrect? Welcome to wrong grammar class with Siri. Anyways, as a child, I had quite a few incorrect views because I just wasn't taught, or not taught, but educated correctly, or like I wasn't told about, oh, this exists as well, so think things through and don't assume. I was never taught stuff like that. I was just taught, be quiet, whatever you know, because it could lead to bad things. So I would say it's more of reasoning that a child lacks. Like, they never know. Okay, I didn't expect to go in psychology here, but here we are. Anyways, as I was saying, it's more of children lack reasoning. And I heard, like, one of my teachers tells me that it's fine that we, like, make bad decisions sometimes because, like, our frontal cortex, I like to say, which is, like, this area of the brain, apparently it's not, like, fully developed or something. And I guess that ties into why we don't, like, think things through, because we don't have the ability to make proper decisions. I mean, honestly, does anyone make right decisions? Because I feel like so many people are out there doubting their decisions unless it's like the same decision you make every day. I mean, that's more of a routine. Like, deciding on brushing your teeth today isn't really a decision, it's just an action that you take. It's like a principle, honestly. You know, I never, and I say this a lot because I truly don't expect to go so deep. Because I plan out, I want to talk about this today because I find it so fun and I think my viewers will like it. And I'd go straight, like, instead of going like this, I go straight to the bottom. And I don't know. It's like an umbrella that just keeps going down and down. Or one of those arrow keys that's like, I'd say this, it's like a V shape, that arrow key, it just keeps going down and down and down. You know, I never expected to have such a deep conversation with the camera, but here we are now. Anyways, so we've covered appearances, so I want to go on to assumptions and stereotypes. So I feel like stereotypes are rooted in assumptions, and then, as I said earlier, assumptions are rooted in appearances. But what causes assumptions is my real question. Like, what makes us infer stuff when we know that there's so many cases? Like, why do we always go with the most common one when usually the most common one is wrong? Like, I have never experienced, like, seeing, okay, let's say we'll come up with an imaginary scenario. You see someone, like, walking tiredly with soccer cleats in their hands, so you would believe that, oh, they're a soccer player, even if they don't have soccer jersey on. But you never believe that there's someone who just wears soccer cleats while doing fashion shows and gets tired from it. And that is very much unrealistic. But just for the sake of this episode, I will do that and I will post a photo of me doing it. So yeah, I just find it so interesting that we always go for one case, even though we know it's most likely not the truth. And we never, I'm assuming stuff in the first place is wrong, but assuming something that you know is not going to be true is like even worse. I mean, it's not necessarily bad. It could just be an unhelpful habit that doesn't help you out in life. Honestly, a lot of these episodes of my podcast are just me rambling, but I find it to be meaningful rambling. Like, it has something that you can take away from. And that's what I love about, like, any video or episode or podcast. It's that there's always something small that you can remember. And that's why I love watching podcasts, because I just find them so interesting. And also, it's nice not having terrible mic quality. So, thank you to whoever invented the idea of podcasts. Anyways, let's move on to illusions. Now, I've always loved the idea of an illusion. Like, growing up, I just found it so wonderful, you know, just having something that you wonder, is this true? Is this untrue? But it also gave me a lot of doubt. And the problem with doubt is that it just follows you everywhere. Like, it's like, I don't know, attacks, I guess. I don't know, but something that just never lets go of your trail. And I feel like you can't let go of it until you just remove all of it and then you get a new one. I don't know. It's like, you know, in foresight, it's kind of like shedding a tail if you're like a lizard or a gecko or something, because you've got it right behind you and then you get rid of it, but you get a new one. And it's different, but it still fulfills the same purpose. Man, I really didn't expect to be doing so many odd analogies, but I think that's, once again, the beauty of having this podcast and the fact that I'm pretty young. It's that I don't like go into like very serious topics. It's that I kind of fool around, but it's like, as I said earlier, something that I like to have. Like, I value this fooling around because I just find it so not inspiring, but just it makes me happy to know that I have something where I can like import knowledge. Well, honestly, I feel like I export knowledge from most of these podcast episodes. Because if I had to describe it, it would be me picking a topic and then finding out my true thoughts about the topic on live. So I think that's one of the other beauties about podcasts, especially with like a younger host. It's that you don't have someone who like already knows everything about the topic and is like pre-scripted. It's that you have someone who's just like more natural and relatable, and then just spill whatever they have in their brains. Now, if that's controversial, then it is, and so be it. But it's just, what comes out of our minds. And I feel like an illusion is also part of our mind. Like, as I said, when I was a kid, I grew up thinking I had like a mental disorder similar to psychosis, or that I was hallucinating. And I feel like illusions are the umbrella to hallucinating. Like, as soon as you think of hallucinating, you think of illusions. And as I said earlier, I still wonder if the camera lens I'm peering into is an illusion itself. Maybe you're an illusion, maybe I'm an illusion. But what I notice is that illusions have layers, and so do stereotypes and assumptions and all of those psychological, humane, societal. I don't even know what to categorize that. It's just people things. Yeah, let's go with that umbrella for that. So everything has layers. It's like, how do I say this? It's like the Russian Matryoshka dolls. And for those of you who don't know what Matryoshka dolls are, they're those Russian dolls that go from like giant to like smaller, smaller, and it's like they're kind of shaped like bowling pins actually. And I'm so sorry if I pronounced the name wrong or if I gave off the wrong idea because I haven't seen one in a long time. But they're like small bowling it's like a giant bowling pin with smaller, smaller, smaller ones until you get like one like really cute and tiny. And each doll actually changes, like the features, the colors, the clothes, and I feel like it can also portray a transformation from like, and I don't want to be like corny or cheesy, but like truly, if I'm being honest, it kind of represents someone's change from, I guess, good to evil, evil to good. Because I feel like the thing is, I don't know how to explain it. Like, the largest doll, the outer doll, would be, I guess, evil because it's not necessarily hollow, but it has hollow layers that don't actually have any content. And then the smallest doll is, the one that's like never really cared for because it's the smallest, but then it's just a solid block of wood. And it may not be quality wood or like understanding wood or caring wood or heroic wood, but it's still something. And I feel like these analogies help connect to, what we face in real life so much. So if I had to describe half of what's going on in my life right now, it's a Matryoshka doll, something just waiting to be unwrapped and surprise you. And speaking of surprises, that also draws into appearances because so many people say that appearances are deceiving, and honestly, they really are. So, for example, I honestly don't know what to think of, but the first thing that popped into my mind is The Princess and the Frog and the Toad Prince. And, due to my cultural background, I never really paid attention to, like, fairy tales or read them. So I'm so sorry if this is wrong, but this is, like, the Siri twist of fairy tales. If Siri talked about them, I guess. So appearances are essentially layers and appearances. They go hand in hand, and they relate in a way to The Princess and the Frog, where if you like kiss the frog, it turns to a prince or whatever. Because you see something that you might think is bad, and then it turns into something good. Or if you're someone who likes to root for the villain, like, I really appreciate those people because I feel like villains are so underrated and underhyped. But anyways, we'll get into that in a later episode, especially because I actually didn't watch much Disney growing up. Like, I stuck to more traditional fairy tales. Well, more of folklore from my culture. But anyways, I forgot what I was going to say. But I guess that's the beauty of having this podcast. It's that I just go on with something that intrigues me. So, appearances and layers. So, as I said, it's like The Princess and the Frog, where, oh, yeah, I remember what I was saying. It's the villain. So, if you root for the villain, then you could say that on the outside you see someone as good, as a healthy, helpful, natural, good to nature frog, I guess. And then inside they could be a prince, but not just any prince, cunning, greedy for money, I don't know, wrong charactered prince, I guess, with like a cold heart or something. So what I love about all of these like appearances, stereotypes, assumptions, all of this good stuff is that you never find the truth. Like, you can like be told something by someone and then you still may not trust it. And that's called trust issues, and although I don't have them, They're very common between people, and honestly, I feel like the biggest trust issue that I do have is with myself, honestly. Because a lot of times I wonder, am I doing this wrong? Or like, am I doubting myself too much? Because there are two layers of doubt. There's the doubt that you naturally have, and then you have the self doubt that the doubt is coming from you. And it's not about like self esteem, how you view yourself, like self care. It's not any of that. It's just natural human nature. Because when you think things through to a point where I feel like when you think things through so deeply, you can't tell if it's like actually thoughts or if it's clear. Because it's either, wow, I think this is super false. Is this an illusion? It's that, or it's, wow, this is super clear. And then that can also lead to, am I assuming things? And I feel like anything, even like grammar or English or math, somehow can draw on psychology, and that can draw on trust issues, and so many problems in society. Well, not problems, but conditions we face. And when I say conditions, you can tell the deadpanness and how it worries me, because when someone says like a special condition, it's usually not good. Like, I had no special conditions on this podcast, but I basically made one up, and that self doubt, like, that just draws in right there, because I always worried about my podcast and whether I was doing the right thing or not. And then I would say the doubt arrived from, I don't know, honestly. It's so hard to tell. But then I wonder, do other podcasters have the same? Is podcasters even a word? Please correct me if I'm wrong. Once again, terrible grammar with Siri. Anyways, as I was saying earlier, I always wonder if like other podcasters worry about their content. And it's not necessarily worrying, but like wonder like, oh, is this like actually going to be interesting? Cuz it's interesting to you, but just take any random podcast. Like for example, let's go with the business podcast because I love business. Like it is an interest, but as you know, when you see stuff of like other people's interests, you usually don't click on them. So I always just get that doubt, you know? I feel like having this blank camera lens right in front of me as I'm talking helps a lot because it's like an unmoving statue. Like if you're talking to someone who's like blunt and cold-hearted and doesn't respond, because it just stares back at you, and that staring is like, it's like viewing your reflection and wondering about your reflection. Like as I stare into this camera lens, I just wonder, how do I go on? And I feel like having something empty gives you content. Like it makes up for the hollowness of it. Because when you look at it, you see the emptiness and wonder what is in this emptiness, and then that fulfills you, I guess. Well, welcome to Destinies with Siri. So anyways, thank you so much for watching this episode, and I really hope that you stay tuned for the next episode. So bye, and once again, this is Siri's podcast.